The hospital's security canine repeatedly barked at a nurse, triggering alarms that were perplexing. However, when security reviewed the camera footage, the medical staff was stunned by what they observed. Here's the account of events. Before we proceed with today's story, please leave a comment below indicating your location. And if you enjoy remarkable police dog stories such as this one, be sure to subscribe for future content. You won't want to miss what's coming next. The consistent beeping of vital sign monitors provided a steady soundscape to the busy evening shift at Memorial General Hospital. Officer Trevor Daniels walked through the main lobby, Ranger positioned perfectly at his heel. The Belgian Malinois' muscular build displayed the unmistakable presence of a working dog, his alert eyes surveying their surroundings with professional focus. Evening, Officer Trevor Daniels. Sandra called from the information desk. Making your rounds? Just starting, Daniels responded. Sandra then lowered her voice. Dr. Harper was inquiring about prescription counts again in oncology. It's probably nothing, but I thought you should be aware, she added. Daniels acknowledged, registering the information. After 3 weeks assigned to this hospital security detail, the pharmaceutical discrepancies that had prompted his assignment remained elusive. Memorial General had requested canine assistance after noticing subtle irregularities in their medication tracking. Nothing dramatic, but concerning enough for the administration to seek specialized help. Daniels hadn't planned on becoming a canine handler. His career path had been directed towards tactical response until a high-speed chase resulted in 3 broken ribs and a shattered femur. When the canine division proposed he might possess the appropriate temperament for handler work, he initially doubted it. Then he encountered Ranger, already demonstrating remarkable focus and seemingly understanding Daniels' physical limitations even before Daniels himself recognized them. 4 years later, that unexpected partnership had resulted in one of the department's highest success rates. They communicated with quiet efficiency. A minor adjustment in Daniels' posture would guide Ranger's focus. The slightest movement in the dog's ear would warn Daniels of something needing attention as they approached the east corridor containing the specialized care units. Daniels observed a distinct change in Ranger's behavior. The dog's ears rose, his walk becoming more measured, muscles tightening beneath his short tan coat. The shift was slight, but noticeable to Daniels. Following Ranger's attention, he observed a nurse exiting pediatric oncology, maneuvering a medication cart. She moved with practiced ease, reviewing something on a tablet. Her appearance gave no indication of anything out of the ordinary. Wearing standard blue scrubs, with dark hair pulled back neatly, she presented the professional demeanor typical of experienced medical staff. Yet Ranger's behavior continued to intensify, shifting into what Daniels recognized as pre-alert posture. Not the full alert for narcotics or contraband, but the preparatory stance suggesting something had captured his highly trained senses. "Easy, boy," Daniels murmured as they approached. The nurse looked up, offering a professional smile that reached her tired eyes. The identification on her badge read Abigail Winters, RN, Pediatric Oncology. "Good evening, officer," she said, her voice even and composed. "First time seeing a police dog in our department." Daniels replied, "We're checking all departments. Just routine security rounds." As she passed by, Ranger's head followed her, his focus intense, which sparked Daniels' investigative instincts. It wasn't his standard alert for narcotics. This presented an unusual situation, deviating from their typical detection procedures. "First time on the oncology floor?" inquired Dr. Martin, the hospital security chief, as he approached from a nearby corridor. "Abigail Winters is one of our top performers. She transferred from Chicago Memorial about 18 months ago. Triple certified, proficient in 4 languages, and she volunteers at the free clinic on weekends. We're fortunate to have her." As they continued their patrol, Daniels resolved to learn more about Abigail Winters. Throughout their time working together, Ranger had never been mistaken when he focused his attention in this manner. For the subsequent 4 days, Daniels modified their patrol routes to incorporate more regular passes through the pediatric oncology department. He stated it was part of a comprehensive coverage plan. However, his real intention was to witness additional interactions between Ranger and Nurse Winters. Every encounter yielded the same outcome. Ranger's focused attention, a subtle tension in his body, but without the formal alert he'd been trained to give for narcotics or other contraband. James Wong, the night security supervisor, observed as they reviewed camera footage in the security office. Something I should know about? Daniels hesitated, reluctant to voice suspicions based solely on his dog's behavior. Just being thorough, Ranger has shown some interest in that department. Wong raised an eyebrow. He wondered if the interest was in medications or in Nurse Winters, noting that both he and his dog had observed her. He smiled. You wouldn't be the first officer captivated by those green eyes. He added that half the male staff had asked her out. Daniels insisted it was professional interest, though he understood the assumption. Abigail Winters was undeniably attractive, but it was her interaction with Ranger that held his attention. He then inquired, has Winters ever been involved in any security incidents? Were there any medication errors, patient grievances, or anything out of the ordinary? Wong's face became serious. Actually, the opposite. She consistently achieves the highest patient satisfaction scores within the department. Families often request her directly for end-stage cases. He examined Daniels intently. What's the reason for the focus on our top nurse? Rather than providing a direct response, Daniels inquired, could you retrieve patient outcome data for pediatric oncology, covering the past 18 months organized by attending nurse? Wong appeared uneasy but agreed, accessing the hospital's data analytics system. This is not a common occurrence, as these reports usually require administrative approval. Please consider it part of our security audit, Daniels responded, observing the data appear on screen. The resulting graph displayed patient mortality rates, categorized by nursing staff. The majority of nurses were near the statistical average, given the seriousness of pediatric cancer cases. One statistic stood out subtly yet steadily. It was Nurse Abigail Winters' performance. That's peculiar, Wong commented. Her patient mortality rate was approximately 8% higher than expected based on statistical models. Could be a chance occurrence, Daniels offered, presenting an alternative viewpoint. Perhaps she receives the most challenging patient assignments. Wong acknowledged this possibility, though a concerned look crossed his face. However, the patient assignment rotation system is designed to distribute complex cases fairly among all competent staff. He entered a few more keystrokes, displaying another report. This presented another anomaly, unplanned medication interventions during night shifts. These were instances where patients required urgent treatment due to unexpected reactions or complications. This graph highlighted a clearer trend. Emergency interventions occurred at almost double the rate during winter shifts when compared to other nurses handling comparable patient assignments. Has anyone looked into this? Daniels inquired. Wong indicated his disagreement. These connections would only become noticeable if someone was actively searching for them. Medicine isn't a precise science. Unforeseen complications arise, particularly with pediatric cancer patients. Daniels considered Ranger's regular response to Winters. His partner wasn't signaling a narcotics diversion. The behavior would have been clearly distinct. This indicated something else. Something Ranger had been trained to recognize, but Daniels had yet to determine. Could I see footage of Winters preparing medications? He inquired. Wong retrieved several video clips displaying the nurse within the medication preparation room. Her procedure seemed impeccable, with double-checking of dosages, thorough documentation, and adherence to all established protocols. However, something about her actions gave Daniels the impression it was staged, as though she was acutely aware of being watched. What's located in the lower compartment of the medication carts? Daniels inquired, observing that Winters sometimes went to this area outside the camera's view. These were typically personal items. Hospital policy permits nurses to keep a backup set of scrubs, lunch, and personal belongings, none related to medical supplies. Afterward, that evening, Daniels stationed himself and Ranger close to the nurse's station as shift change neared. Nurse Winters came out of a patient's room, appearing professional but tired after 12 hours of work. When she saw them, a brief expression crossed her face. A moment of caution preceded her regaining composure. Officer Daniels, we meet again. Her smile appeared sincere, but didn't fully reach her eyes. Your partner seems exceptionally alert tonight. As if validating her comment, Ranger's stance grew rigid, his attention fixed on her medication cart instead of on Winters himself. Daniels noticed the difference. A long shift? He inquired casually. It was a challenging one, she responded. We lost Ethan on April 12th this afternoon. She succumbed to terminal leukemia, though the passing occurred more swiftly than anticipated. Her voice conveyed appropriate compassion, and her expression was carefully managed to project professional concern, avoiding overt emotion. I'm sorry to hear that, Daniels said, observing her intently. Was it anticipated? A brief hardening flickered in her eyes. In pediatric oncology, officer, death is invariably expected. The only factors are when and how. She looked at her watch. Please excuse me, I need to finish my documentation prior to the handoff. As she departed, Nurse Chun from the following shift came forward, observing Winters' departing form with a concerned look. Another patient? She inquired of Daniels softly. A boy in room April 12th, he confirmed. Winters stated that it was a terminal case. Chen's expression grew serious. Ethan had been responding favorably to his new treatment protocol last week. His lab results had been improving. She shook her head. Within the field of oncology, one becomes accustomed to managing expectations regarding patient outcomes. However, occasionally, the results defy explanation. How frequently does that occur? Daniels inquired, adopting a relaxed manner. Chun paused, displaying evident discomfort. Medicine isn't always predictable, particularly when dealing with pediatric cancer, she stated softly. But candidly, it appears to happen more often during Abby's work periods. The other nurses have observed this as well, though no one wishes to voice their concerns. Her records are consistently impeccable, and her procedures are technically faultless. As Chun moved to commence her shift, Daniels knelt beside Ranger, who remained attentive to the path Winters had taken. What are you detecting, boy? He murmured, gently stroking behind the dog's ears. What isn't she revealing? He remembered Ranger's advanced training, extending beyond routine narcotics identification. The canine unit possessed certification in detecting chemical adulterants, substances introduced into medications that would not be identified during routine inventory assessments. This specialized capability arose following an incident involving a hospital staff member suspected of tampering with patient medications. The possibility deeply concerned Daniels. If Winters were somehow altering medications instead of misappropriating them, it would clarify both Ranger's atypical alert responses and the concerning patient outcome data. Furthermore, Daniels suspected events far more serious than drug theft were occurring at Memorial General. He needed proof beyond data and animal reactions before presenting such a significant concern to hospital leadership. Charging their leading nurse necessitated undeniable certainty, so Daniels resolved to request security camera installation in unmonitored zones, particularly focusing on the medication preparation room during winter shifts. The overnight shift at Memorial General operated with a distinct pace compared to the daytime shift. Fewer staff members, lower lighting, and the quietness of the essential personnel fostered an environment where observations were more pronounced. Daniels had specifically asked for the night shift to monitor Nurse Winters, who had changed to the night rotation for the week. They situated themselves carefully close to the central monitoring station, allowing them to observe without drawing immediate attention. He told the inquisitive desk attendant that they were conducting a night shift security audit. We're evaluating protocols across all time periods, he explained. At precisely 2:17 a.m., Winters appeared at the far end of the corridor, pushing her medication cart with practiced efficiency. She moved with a confident and familiar air, her steps purposeful as she entered the room of a new patient, 8-year-old Michael Torres, recently admitted with an aggressive form of lymphoma. Ranger's reaction was immediate and intense. His muscles tensed, ears forward, eyes locked on Winters' cart as she disappeared into the room. Daniels had observed this behavior consistently enough to trust it without question. He whispered to the security attendant, "Wait here." He needed to observe the medication preparation room. With practiced stealth, Daniels positioned himself where he could see into the medication room adjacent to the nurse's station. The transparent walls allowed staff supervision while providing a controlled environment for drug preparation. 3 minutes later, Winters emerged from Michael's room and headed directly to this preparation area. Her actions were deliberate as she logged into the medication system, retrieved several vials, and began preparing what appeared to be a standard treatment protocol. Nothing in her actions seemed out of the ordinary. She double-checked dosages, documented each step, and adhered to standard procedures with textbook precision. Then, glancing quickly around the quiet floor, she reached beneath her scrub top and removed a small cosmetic bag from an inner pocket. With practiced efficiency, she unzipped it and removed a small vial holding a clear liquid. The vial lacked a pharmacy label and a tracking barcode, a significant breach of protocol. Daniels held his breath, observing as Winters carefully added several drops from this unauthorized vial to Michael's medication bag. Her movements were quick and confident, revealing a routine she had performed repeatedly. She placed the vial back into her cosmetic bag, carefully securing it, and continued her documentation as if everything was normal. The whole process took under 20 seconds. Winters completed her documentation, seeming entirely calm as she got ready to administer the altered medication to her patient. As she turned to leave, she stopped short. Rangers was positioned in the hallway, his focused attention fixed on her medication cart, with Daniels close behind. A fleeting, cold expression crossed her face before her professional demeanor returned. "Officer Daniels working late tonight?" He responded calmly, observing her placement between him and the medication. "Preparing treatment for Michael Torres?" She replied, her voice even, though her eyes remained cautious. "Is there something I can assist you with?" Daniels indicated the medication bag. "I observed you added something from a personal vial. That isn't standard procedure, is it?" The question lingered between them. For a brief moment, Winters' professionalism seemed to falter, her fingers subtly tightening on the bag. She then offered a smile, a familiar, assured look that had probably deflected doubt on numerous occasions. "You must be incorrect. Everything I've prepared originates from pharmacy stock. Please feel free to review the documentation." She presented her tablet, which accurately documented all medications, with no record of the unauthorized addition. "Rangers appears quite interested in your cart," Daniels noted, observing his partner's watchful stance. "He's specifically trained to identify substances not permitted in hospital environments." Winters' face grew stern. "Officer Daniels, these medications have strict time constraints. My patient requires them to be administered according to the prescribed schedule." She attempted to move past him, but Daniels adjusted his stance, remaining in place. "I'd like to see what's in your personal cosmetic bag," he stated softly. "That would be an invasion of privacy," she responded promptly. "Unless you have a warrant or specific hospital authorization, my personal belongings are protected. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a patient waiting." Their confrontation was broken up by the night nursing supervisor. "Is there a problem here?" Winters immediately adopted a concerned expression. "Michael's medication was getting delayed. I had just been explaining to Officer Daniels that timing is critical for chemotherapy protocols." Daniels made a split-second decision. Without immediate evidence, he couldn't prevent her from administering the medication, but he could ensure it was verified first. "I have observed a potential protocol violation. I would like pharmacy to verify this medication before administration." The supervisor looked startled. "This is quite unexpected during a shift. Introducing unapproved components to patient medications is also concerning," Daniels stated, observing Winters' reaction closely. "Hospital regulations allow security personnel to ask for confirmation if there's a suspicion of alteration." The term alteration created a palpable unease in the hallway. The supervisor's demeanor changed from uncertainty to worry. "Nurse Winters should have the pharmacy review this. I will personally deliver it to them." Winters argued that it was unnecessary, her composure beginning to falter. "The medication will degrade if not administered promptly," she stated. "Then we'll prepare a fresh dose while pharmacy analyzes this one," the supervisor responded firmly, taking the bag. "Protocol is clear when tampering is alleged." Winters' eyes shifted between them, calculations seeming to struggle beneath her careful expression. This is ridiculous. I've done nothing wrong. She retreated, her hand moving reflexively towards the pocket holding her cosmetic bag. Don't, Daniels said softly. Ranger approached, his training clear in his focused awareness. I'd like you to empty your pockets, Nurse Winters. I do not consent to a search, she responded, her voice firm. This is harassment. The supervisor stepped in. Abby, to expedite this, would you be willing to show us what's in your pockets? Then we can all return to our tasks. Winters paused, appearing to weigh her options. Then, carefully, she took out her hospital ID, a pen, and her cell phone. Satisfied? She asked, her voice devoid of warmth. However, Daniels had noticed the faint shape of a cosmetic bag beneath her scrubs. There's something else, Daniels stated. The bag you used before. At that moment, Winters' demeanor shifted. Her composed facade vanished, exposing a calculating and cold look underneath. I want to speak with hospital administration and my union representative. I will not continue this discussion without legal representation. The supervisor appeared increasingly concerned. Abby, please just display the bag to allow us to proceed. Michael requires his medication. Then, prepare a fresh dose, Winters stated, her carefully controlled composure visibly deteriorating. I am not participating in this line of questioning. Daniels reached for his radio. I request security be dispatched to the pediatric oncology medication preparation area. There is a possible medication tampering situation in progress. Within minutes, security personnel arrived, followed shortly by the on-call hospital administrator. As the situation escalated, Winters became increasingly defensive, declining to show the contents of her cosmetic bag or permit examination of her medication cart. I want these accusations documented, she insisted. My record is spotless. My patients receive exemplary care. It's important that we verify the medications you've prepared, the administrator said, instructing security to secure the medication cart and preparation area, treating them as potential evidence. Daniels then quietly spoke to the administrator. I need authorization for hidden cameras in the medication room and preservation of tonight's footage. I believe Nurse Winters has been tampering with patient medications for some time. The seriousness of the accusation became palpable. Should the allegations be substantiated, it would signify a devastating failure of confidence and possibly several instances of patient harm. The administrator acknowledged the severity of the situation with a somber nod. As Winters proceeded to the administrative offices, her gaze locked with Daniels, conveying a disturbing intensity. He observed the absence of fear. Instead, he detected only calculation and a more unsettling element that evoked a palpable chill. Ranger's earlier warnings proved accurate. The contents of that cosmetic bag were clearly not intended to aid patient recovery. By 6 a.m., the hospital conference room had been converted into a temporary command center. Digital displays showed security camera recordings, medication records, and patient files as a serious-looking group of hospital administrators, security staff, and police examined the information. Daniels was positioned close to the doorway. Ranger stood watch beside him as the hospital's chief of medicine replayed the security footage for the third time. There, Dr. Harrison stated, pausing the image. That is not standard procedure. The display showed Nurse Winters in the medication preparation room 3 nights earlier. She looked around, verifying her solitude, and then removed a small vial from her cosmetic bag. She worked with practiced efficiency, adding drops of an unknown substance to an 4 bag, carefully returning the vial to her bag, and then proceeding with documentation as if nothing unusual had occurred. The security director reported identifying 12 separate instances of this behavior over the past week. Scrolling through time-stamped images, these incidents always occurred during night shifts, and always when she believed no one was watching. Hospital Administrator Patricia Goldman rubbed her fingertips against her temples. The patient in this footage is Emma Reyes, located in room 409. What occurred to her following the medication administration? Pediatric oncologist, consulting his tablet, stated that she experienced unexplained tachycardia and respiratory distress roughly 40 minutes post-administration. We initially believed it was attributable to a reaction to her chemotherapy protocol. And did she recover? Goldman inquired, her voice strained. The oncologist's expression grew somber. Ultimately, she needed intensive care and experienced disruptions to her treatment timeline. Daniels observed their reactions as the meaning became clear. The first shock had faded, replaced by dread as more information emerged. This wasn't a case of unauthorized drug use for personal gain or financial benefit. It was intentional harm to a patient. What about the contents of the cosmetic bag? Dr. Harrison asked, addressing the police detective who had joined them. The lab is expediting the analysis, Detective Morales stated. Initial findings suggest a compound that imitates signs of infection in the bloodstream. In effect, it deceives the body, triggering an inflammatory reaction that mirrors sepsis. A palpable silence descended upon the room. The discovery was more unsettling than straightforward drug theft. This represented deliberate harm targeted at vulnerable children. How could we have overlooked this? Goldman questioned, her usual professional demeanor faltering. She has been with us for only 18 months. Her references were excellent. We've contacted Chicago Memorial, Morales explained. They have no record of an Abigail Winters ever being employed there. This revelation was significant. Falsified credentials, deliberate patient harm. The case was growing beyond anything they had initially suspected. What about patient outcomes during her employment? Daniels inquired. Beyond the incidents we've identified this week? The pediatric oncologist tapped his tablet, displaying a statistical analysis. We've identified 27 patients who experienced unexpected complications during Nurse Winters' shifts. 9 of those children died. His voice faltered. Deaths that were attributed to complications of their cancer or treatment. Dr. Harrison slammed her hand against the table. She's been hurting them deliberately, all this time, and we never suspected. She turned to Daniels. How did your dog know? What did he detect that our entire medical and security staff missed? Daniels looked down at Ranger, whose training and instincts had started the investigation. Ranger was initially trained for pharmaceutical detection, but he received further certification in chemical adulterants. He was identifying the foreign substance she was adding to the medications, something that wouldn't show up in your standard inventory controls. Where is Winters now? Goldman asked. In custody, Morales replied. A warrant was secured utilizing the available security footage. The district attorney is formulating charges, including at least multiple counts of assault, with the possibility of attempted murder contingent on the laboratory analysis determining her intent. A security technician entered the room, presenting a tablet to the security director. Sir, we have accessed Winters' locker. You must view this. The director's complexion changed as he reviewed the images. She maintained records, comprehensive notes regarding patient reactions, timestamps, and dosages. He looked up, visibly shaken, and displayed photographs of the children taken during their distress events. The revelation sent a chill through the room. This wasn't opportunistic behavior, it was methodical, documented, and calculated harm. We need to check her previous employment, Morales stated. If she falsified her credentials here, she likely did it elsewhere. There could be more victims. And we need to review every patient currently under her care, Dr. Harrison added. Some patients may still have contaminated medications in their systems or IVs. Goldman nodded, the burden of responsibility clear on her face. I'll authorize emergency blood work for all patients who received care from Winters in the past week and will need to notify families. She hesitated, the seriousness of the situation becoming apparent. How do we inform parents that someone they trusted with their children's lives was intentionally inflicting harm? A silence returned to the room as the question remained without a response. Daniels recalled the children he had observed during his patrols, already struggling with severe illnesses, their young bodies fighting cancer, and then being subjected to further harm by someone in a position of responsibility. What could have driven her? The pediatric oncologist inquired eventually. Was it money? Drugs? A form of excitement? Morales reviewed his notes. The contents of her locker and her responses during the initial interview suggest what psychological profilers identify as medical deception disorder, previously referred to as Munchausen by proxy. She appeared to gain satisfaction from fabricating medical emergencies and subsequently participating in or witnessing the reactions to them. But these weren't her children, Dr. Harrison pointed out. The understanding of this disorder has changed, Morales clarified. In certain situations, especially within medical environments, some perpetrators direct their actions toward patients instead of family members. The motivation can stem from the satisfaction of participating in an emergency response, appearing skilled during a crisis, or simply from exerting dominance over vulnerable individuals. As more details emerged, Daniels received a text message from the evidence technicians examining Winter's apartment. The journals discovered contained documentation covering more than 5 years. Past employment history shows records from 3 other hospitals, with a recurring pattern observed at each location. Winter's actions were escalating rapidly, indicating a years-long history of patient harm across multiple facilities. Her technique, involving the administration of substances that resembled natural illness complications, enabled her to avoid detection, progressing from hospital to hospital as concerns might have started to arise. Until a Belgian Malinois with specialized training detected what humans had missed. Goldman stood, her decision made. We will implement full transparency protocol. All affected families will be notified today. We will contact regulatory agencies and previous employers immediately, and we will implement emergency medication verification protocols for all pediatric patients. She turned to Daniels and Ranger. If you hadn't trusted your partner's instincts, this could have continued indefinitely. Ranger remained watchful next to Daniels, not realizing the significance of the discovery his specialized training revealed. For him, it was merely detection work, identifying an anomalous substance. For the children in the oncology unit, it represented a crucial difference, a reprieve from further suffering and an opportunity to concentrate entirely on recovery. The pediatric oncology floor underwent a complete overnight transformation. Law enforcement personnel were positioned at key locations within the hallway. Forensic specialists carefully examined the pharmacy, and hospital security personnel diligently monitored each patient's room. Relatives, who had gathered following urgent notifications from the hospital, clustered in smaller groups, their expressions reflecting a blend of apprehension and anger, while hospital officials detailed the unfolding events. Daniels and Ranger continued to be positioned close to the main nurses' station, observing how Detective Morales managed the expanding inquiry. The district attorney authorized charges given the substantial proof. However, they required Winter's complete confession to grasp the extent of her actions. She stayed in an administrative conference room, being watched, and had declined to speak further unless her lawyer was there. 6 active 4 bags have been confirmed to contain adulterants, according to a report from the hospital pharmacist, who presented the tablet displaying laboratory results, all prepared by Winters within the last 48 hours. The affected bags have been replaced, and blood samples have been taken from each patient to determine exposure levels. Morales nodded grimly. Regarding the substance itself, the pharmacist explained that it is a sophisticated compound which triggers inflammatory markers. This method essentially mimics the body's response to infection without being detectable in standard toxicology screens. The symptoms appear as complications of the underlying cancer or side effects of treatment. As Daniels observed, she knew exactly what she was doing. A disturbance near the elevators drew their attention. A man in an expensive suit had arrived, immediately demanding to see Nurse Winters. The attorney's arrival signaled the start of the investigation's next stage, a formal interrogation that could potentially expose the complete scope of Winter's actions. Officer Daniels, Morales stated, "I need you and Ranger present for this interview. Her reaction to your dog might elicit responses we wouldn't otherwise obtain." They proceeded to the conference room where Winters was being held. She appeared remarkably composed, her posture stiff, hands arranged precisely on the table before her. The slight lines around her mouth were the only indication of any stress. As Ranger entered the room, her gaze immediately found him. A brief, fleeting expression, perhaps hatred, perhaps fear, crossed her face before she regained her composure. "Ms. Winters," Morales began after the introductions were finished, "we have confirmed the presence of foreign substances and medications you prepared. Substances causing patients to experience life-threatening symptoms have been identified. We have recovered your journals detailing patient reactions comprehensively. Your guilt is now undeniable. Her attorney attempted to object, but Winters quieted him with a subtle motion. What precisely am I being accused of, detective? Providing excellent care to terminally ill children? Remaining with them during their most challenging times? Daniels interrupted, visibly repulsed, unable to hold back his words about the deliberate infliction of suffering on children already battling cancer. Winters' gaze moved towards him, sharp and assessing. A compelling suggestion. Can you demonstrate intent? Morales presented a tablet, displaying a video compilation of security footage that showed her repeatedly adding unauthorized substances to medications. Your own records establish intent, Ms. Winters. Detailed notes regarding dosages, timing, and anticipated reactions were present. Photographs of suffering children were also included. Then, a subtle shift occurred in her expression. It wasn't remorse, but rather a professional disappointment at being uncovered. She briefly looked at Ranger, who kept his watchful stance, his training clearly visible in his controlled alertness. The dog, she stated eventually. That's where I erred. I conducted a thorough investigation of the hospital's security protocols, taking into consideration cameras, inventory controls, and witness routines. However, I did not foresee a specially trained canine. A small, chilling smile touched her lips. A miscalculation on my part. Her attorney appeared alarmed. Abigail, I advise you to cease speaking. It is fine, Richard, she interjected calmly. The evidence is complete. I acknowledge a checkmate when I see one. She leaned forward slightly. You desire to understand why. As expected, Morales stated, switching on the recording equipment on the table. Winters' demeanor stayed unruffled as she proceeded with her speech, her tone professional and distant. Medicine involves control. The misconception that we can manage the unpredictable nature of failing human biology. Most healthcare professionals overestimate their influence. I chose to accept a different form of control. By harming children, Daniels questioned, his hand automatically moving to Ranger's shoulder. She explained, as if outlining a basic principle, that by establishing scenarios she could anticipate and control, she mitigated the feeling of urgent intervention, the parents' relief when their child unexpectedly improved, and the admiration of colleagues for handling difficult cases. Her expression remained unsettlingly calm. There's power in that instant when life and death are poised delicately, and you alone determine the outcome. Her revelation caused a palpable shift in the atmosphere. This was not a crime driven by emotion or need. It was a deliberate, ongoing infliction of harm for personal psychological satisfaction. How many? Morales inquired softly. How many children have you harmed? Winters inclined her head a little, pausing to think. Hurt is open to interpretation, detective. Many were already facing life-threatening conditions. I merely hastened or complicated their paths, she responded, shrugging. I've been employed at 7 hospitals over the past 8 years. I seldom maintained exact records. The informality of her reply hit Daniels with the force of a physical blow. 7 hospitals, 8 years. The potential number of victims was staggering. Throughout the interview, Winters described her methods with the dispassionate accuracy of someone analyzing an academic case study, instead of recounting her own crimes against vulnerable children. She elaborated on how she chose victims, how she adjusted dosages to produce particular symptoms, and how she recorded responses for her personal records. And the deaths? Morales persisted. What about the children who did not survive your interventions? For the first time, Winters displayed a visible emotional reaction. It wasn't regret, but rather something akin to professional pride. Those cases offered distinct learning opportunities. The boundary between crisis and catastrophe is compelling to analyze. Her lawyer subsequently stepped in, understanding the detrimental effect her words were having. However, the harm had already occurred. Winters' admission guaranteed she would be barred from healthcare employment and would likely face decades in prison, potentially for the rest of her life. As preparations were made to transfer her to police custody, Winters paused near Daniels and Ranger. Remarkable animal, she noted clinically. What specific compound was he trained to detect? Justice, Daniels replied concisely, Observing officers escort her away in handcuffs. 21 days following Abigail Winters' arrest, Memorial General Hospital held a private meeting for the families impacted by her actions. The spacious conference room was occupied by parents, whose children had suffered unforeseen complications during their cancer treatments, complications now recognized as the consequence of intentional manipulation, instead of the normal progression of their illnesses. Hospital Administrator Dr. Patricia Goldman addressed the gathered families, her usual confident appearance softened by the seriousness of her role. There are no words sufficient to convey our grief over the events that occurred within our facility, she began. We did not fulfill our essential obligation to safeguard vulnerable patients entrusted to our care. Daniels stood at the back of the room with Ranger beside him. Several families specifically requested their presence to thank the K-9 officer who had uncovered Winters' actions. Goldman detailed the hospital's extensive response, including new medication protocols, enhanced security measures, and psychological support for affected patients. Daniels noted the spectrum of feelings present in the room: grief, anger, relief, and the distinct, troubled look on the faces of parents reflecting on every challenging instance their child had endured during treatment. The investigation has verified 19 instances of intentional medication tampering at our facility, Goldman stated, her voice remaining composed despite the troubling news she was conveying. Customized treatment plans have been created for the children who survived these events, designed to handle any potential long-term consequences. For the children who were lost, her voice faltered, we cannot undo this, but we pledge to provide support in any way possible. A father in the front row stood, his face etched with grief and anger. My daughter, Sophie, passed away during what you termed a crisis event on Winters' shift 3 months ago. She had been recovering prior to that night. His voice trembled. How can I ever trust a hospital again? How can any of us? The room fell silent, the question unanswered until a small voice from the doorway eased the tension. Officer Ranger helped me get better. Everyone's attention focused as Michael Torres, 8 years old, was wheeled into the room by his mother. The boy, whose altered medication had been stopped the night of Winters' arrest, appeared pale but resolute, with an 4-pole beside his wheelchair. He indicated Ranger directly. The police dog understood the medicine was incorrect. That's what my doctor explained. Michael offered a faint smile. He's a hero dog. The uncomplicated declaration from a child appeared to alter the atmosphere in the room. Families started recounting their experiences, detailing instances where their children had faced unexplained difficulties, now illuminated by Winters' admission. The shared trauma was evident, yet so was the comfort of realizing these events weren't arbitrary misfortunes or shortcomings in medical understanding. Following the close of the formal meeting, Daniels was approached by numerous parents eager to meet Ranger. Many expressed their gratitude, often tearfully, for his faith in his partner's instincts, especially given the absence of clear warning signs. The hospital's pediatric psychologist had proposed that an encounter with Ranger could be beneficial for the children, offering a way to work through their experiences by centering on the canine who had apprehended the person who harmed them. While children gently stroked Ranger under Daniel's watchful guidance, Detective Morales spoke to him privately regarding developments in the investigation. The case is broadening, Morales stated softly. We're certain Winters was employed at hospitals in 4 states, consistently within pediatric units, always involving vulnerable patients. 3 additional hospitals have restarted inquiries into unusual patient fatalities during her time with them. What is the total number of victims? Daniels observed, noticing how Ranger calmly received affection from a delicate girl whose arms showed marks from many 4 lines. We might never know the precise number, Morales confessed. Her journals cover a span of 6 years, but we believe her actions started during nursing school. A cautious assessment suggests more than 50 children were harmed, with at least 17 deaths that can be clearly linked to her actions. The extent of Winters' crimes proved hard to grasp. A campaign spanning years, masked by a veneer of professionalism, had, according to her initial psychological evaluation, presented a clear example of what clinicians now recognized as medical deception disorder, a pathological compulsion to fabricate and manage medical emergencies to fulfill profound psychological needs for control, recognition, and affirmation. The prosecutors expressed assurance, and Daniels inquired, Morales affirmed. Her admission by itself would suffice. The combination of physical evidence, documentation, and witness statements suggests she faces multiple life sentences. She will not be able to work in healthcare again, nor will she have access to vulnerable patients. A small hand tugged at Daniel's uniform pants. Michael Torres looked up at him from his wheelchair, his eyes serious, beyond his years. Officer Daniels, can Ranger visit me sometimes when I have treatments? My mom says he might be allowed as a therapy dog. Daniels knelt to the boy's level. That could potentially be arranged. Ranger is quite remarkable. He's received training as both a detection dog and a therapy dog. Michael nodded gravely. He was aware that the problematic nurse was harming children when others were not. Perhaps he can offer some comfort now. This straightforward request summarized everything about the case that had impacted Daniels so profoundly. Children battling serious illnesses had encountered an extra, concealed threat from someone in a position of trust. Despite such a deep breach of trust, solace could still be found in the presence of a dog whose specialized training and unwavering instincts revealed the truth. As the families slowly left, Dr. Goldman spoke to Daniels. We are establishing a K-9 screening program for all pediatric medications, she explained. Your department has consented to assist in training our security personnel. Cannot reverse the past, but it may avert comparable incidents going forward. Daniels nodded, observing Ranger's careful interaction with the last child. I'm just doing what I was trained to do, he said softly, detecting substances that shouldn't be present. Goldman countered, no, you both accomplished something far more significant. You prioritized intuition over surface impressions. Everyone perceived Winters as an exemplary nurse. You recognized her true nature, because you listened to your partner when he expressed concern. At that instant, observing Ranger's gaze directed upwards, filled with complete trust, Daniels grasped the profound strength of the K-9 handler bond, a partnership founded on reciprocal respect and steadfast belief in each other's capabilities. Collaboratively, they had exposed a predator concealed in an ordinary environment, concluding a sequence of incidents that could have persisted without intervention. Have you ever observed an animal detect something humans overlooked? Animals frequently exhibit remarkable instincts, capable of sensing things we cannot. Please share your experiences in the comments section. What are your opinions regarding hospitals utilizing K-9 security units? Do you believe more healthcare facilities should incorporate service dogs to enhance both security and patient well-being? We value your input. Considering the scenario, if you were Officer Daniels, would you have relied on your K-9 partner's warnings, even when all others defended Nurse Winters' reputation? Occasionally, relying on our intuition or our partner's intuition can make a significant impact. Thank you for watching today's remarkable K-9 story. If you enjoyed learning about Ranger's life-saving work, remember to subscribe and enable notifications by clicking the bell icon to ensure you don't miss our uploads every Tuesday and Friday. Check out these other inspiring K-9 hero stories appearing on your screen now. We appreciate you watching. Please share this video with those who recognize the remarkable connection between handlers and their K-9 partners. Until next time, remain safe, understanding these four-legged heroes are working diligently to safeguard us all. The tracking dog abruptly halted at the forest's boundary, his fur bristling and a low growl emanating from his chest. Shadow, what is it? Sergeant Morgan inquired, securing her hold on the leash. Shortly after, they located the old house situated deep within the woods, a place where no house ought to exist, but what they found inside instilled a chilling dread. What precisely did they unearth in that neglected location? Please subscribe and leave a comment below, letting us know your location. Let's get started. Kate Morgan was loading equipment into her department SUV as dawn approached. She watched with concern as Shadow, her Belgian Malinois partner, paced anxiously beside the vehicle. Usually the dog would wait calmly during preparations, but today his strong body stayed rigid, shifting between gentle movements and focused looks at the nearby forest. At 34, Sergeant Morgan had become Pinewood County's leading search expert. Shadow, possessing his advanced certification and abilities in tracking and cadaver detection, had made them the department's preferred team for missing persons cases. The call had arrived after midnight. Jason Reeves, age 27, was missing after failing to return from his day hike on Blackwater Ridge Trail. The first search team found no sign of him in the darkness. Sheriff Donovan arrived with the rest of the team, his face showing worry. Morning, Kate. The weather report indicates rain by afternoon. We have roughly 6 hours before conditions worsen. Kate nodded, making sure her equipment was secure. We'll find him. Donovan observed the dog's agitated state. What's got Shadow so worked up? He asked. I'm not sure, she replied. He has been like this since they arrived. She scratched behind Shadow's ears. Focus up, partner. But as the team gathered for briefing, Kate couldn't shake the feeling that Shadow's agitation wasn't merely pre-search excitement. In their 3 years together, she learned to read his signals, and this behavior felt different, almost like a warning. Blackwater Ridge stretched across the northeastern corner of Pinewood County like a jagged spine. Dense forests climbing into mist-shrouded peaks. The search team gathered at the trailhead, where Jason Reeves's blue Subaru was parked. Kate swiftly organized the team while unloading Shadow. Deputy Torres and Chun would take the South Fork. Harrison and Lopez were to check the ravine. The sheriff and I would follow Shadow on the main trail. Kate presented Shadow with Jason's navy fleece from a sealed bag. The Malinois inhaled deeply, transitioning to work mode, though Kate observed the remaining tension in his posture. She firmly instructed, securing his tracking lead. After 20 minutes near a small footbridge, Shadow abruptly halted, his body becoming rigid as he analyzed the air instead of the ground. What's he on to? Donovan inquired. Rather than proceeding across the bridge, Shadow abruptly turned to the right, drawing Kate towards an embankment. 50 yards away was a forest green backpack, swiftly recognized as Jason's, containing his wallet and phone. The trail continued in that direction. Donovan indicated along the creek bed, where crushed plants indicated recent activity. Shadow hesitated to proceed, stubbornly pulling toward the apparently untouched forest. Shadow, find, Kate repeated, attempting to guide him. The Malinois emitted a whine, pulling with unusual force, a behavior Kate had never observed during a search. Your dog seems disoriented, Deputy Torres commented. The path is clearly alongside the water. Kate observed Shadow's concentrated gaze. I'm going with Shadow. A sense of unease settled over him regarding the creek trail. We should split up, Torres proposed. No, Kate stated decisively. If someone is intentionally leading us astray, separating could create a risk. She addressed Donovan. Sheriff, I request your confidence. 3 years with Shadow indicate we must follow his guidance. Donovan acknowledged. We will follow the dog. Torres, please note this location and communicate with the other teams. We will keep in touch via radio. Shadow took the lead as Kate and Donovan advanced further into the forest, moving away from marked trails and into a wilderness seldom visited by recreational hikers. The ground became more challenging the farther they strayed from known paths. Thick pine and old fir trees formed a natural maze, their large trunks limiting visibility to less than 20 yards. We're traveling northwest now, Donovan observed, consulting his GPS. There are no recorded trails in this area. This was old-growth forest, untouched by logging. After 30 minutes of consistent hiking, Shadow halted at the foot of a sharp ridge, his ears twitching as he analyzed the scents carried on the breeze. Suddenly, he bolted forward with such momentum that Kate briefly stumbled. Shadow, easy, she called, reasserting control of the lead. The dog had stopped at a seemingly neglected path, running across the ridge face. Service road, Donovan stated, bending down to inspect the packed soil hidden by the plants. An old one, not listed on any maps we have now. As they proceeded down the neglected service road, Kate experienced a rising sense of disquiet. The woods appeared to press in on them, the overhead branches becoming denser until only infrequent beams of light reached the ground. This section was harvested in the 1920s, Donovan clarified, ending the quiet. Company archives document a minor worker settlement, consisting of impermanent buildings intended to be vacated upon the end of operations. Shadow guided them around a pronounced curve in the aged road and abruptly halted, his posture tense with focus. Kate tracked his line of sight and felt her breathing shorten. Situated within a compact clearing was a two-story house, its time-worn, clapboard facade darkened by age and moisture. Rather than the crumbling ruin one could anticipate following a century of abandonment, the structure seemed mostly complete, with some sagging areas, dark and empty windows, but fundamentally stable. "That's not a logging camp shack," Kate stated softly. "No," Donovan concurred, his hand moving naturally to his sidearm. "That's someone's homestead, and it shouldn't be here." The house stood before them, its aged exterior showing the marks of many seasons. As she approached, Kate observed details previously hidden from afar: intricate Victorian-style trim around the eaves, though much of it was decayed, and vestiges of what had undoubtedly been a graceful wrap-around porch, now partially collapsed at one corner. "Sheriff's Department," she announced. "We are conducting a search for a missing hiker. Anyone inside, please identify yourself." Only silence responded. The forest sounds appeared subdued around the property, fostering an unsettling quiet that prickled the skin on Kate's arms. "I'm seeing recent footprints," Donovan observed, indicating clear marks in the yielding ground close to the porch steps. "Multiple sets, some arriving, some departing." Kate bent down to study a well-defined print. "This matches the tread pattern from Jason's hiking boots, based on the girlfriend's description. He was certainly here." Adhering to the established procedures for entering potentially occupied buildings during search operations, Donovan drew his service weapon, maintaining a safe downward-pointing position. He repeated, "Sheriff's Department. We are entering to search the premises." The front door emitted a concerning creak as Donovan pushed it open. The interior was dimly lit, the scant daylight that penetrated through the cloudy, undamaged windows illuminated a foyer characterized by peeling wallpaper and a dust-covered wooden floor. Remarkably, the furniture was still present. A discolored mirror leaned askew on one wall, and a former elegant side table sat beneath it, its surface covered in debris. The air inside was chilly and damp, carrying the stale odor of prolonged desertion combined with something else, something less definable, something more recent. Shadow moved carefully into the foyer, his nose working constantly, head turning to register each room extending from the central space. Deviating from his typical approach, he appeared hesitant to move forward, remaining uncommonly near Kate. "Living room clear," Donovan stated, inspecting the initial doorway on their right. The connected dining room and kitchen also displayed indications of emptiness, although nothing presented an immediate cause for worry, simply decades of dust, dislodged plaster, and the minor remnants left by wildlife seeking refuge. Kate noticed someone had been present, observing the kitchen table's relatively clean spots where dust had been recently moved, and noting an empty modern water bottle in one corner. Their attention then shifted to a door located beneath the main staircase, which is when Shadow's demeanor changed significantly. The Malinois halted suddenly, his body becoming rigid as he focused on the closed door. A low growl emanated from his throat. "Basement access," Donovan stated softly. Kate observed a detail overlooked during their first search. Tiny symbols were etched into the door frame, abstract designs that seemed intentional, not mere random damage. Comparable markings were present on the floor at the threshold, subtle lines scratched into the aged wood. "These are new," she stated, bending down to inspect them, "and they're all around the door, almost as if, like a boundary or a warning," Donovan concluded. Shadow's growl intensified, his gaze firmly fixed on the basement door. Throughout 3 years of searches, building clearances, and tracking operations, Kate had never witnessed her partner exhibit such intense apprehension. Kate encountered Shadow during a difficult period in her career. Following 8 years in military police, including 2 deployments to Afghanistan, she joined the Pinewood County Sheriff's Department, anticipating a less demanding role. Her initial 2 years of service concluded with a tragic, unsuccessful attempt to locate a 4-year-old who had strayed from a campsite. The child's remains were discovered several days later, just half a mile from an area that had already been searched. This experience significantly damaged her self-assurance. Sheriff Donovan encouraged her to focus on growth instead of withdrawing, and he offered her a K-9 unit application. During training, she encountered a lean Belgian Malinois. The dog's evaluation noted high intelligence but difficulty in management, along with exceptional search aptitude and inconsistent responses to commands. The trainer stated that Shadow's intensity made him unsuitable for most handlers. Rescued from abuse at 10 months of age, the previous owner had employed harsh training techniques, essentially torture. Their partnership started with challenges. A significant turning point occurred during a night exercise when Kate fell and sustained a head injury. Instead of returning to base as instructed, Shadow remained with her throughout the night, subsequently leading her along the simplest route back, accommodating her uneven steps. Now, gazing at the basement door with its unusual markings, Kate remembered Fletcher's advice about heeding a dog's instincts even when the reason wasn't clear. Shadow wasn't simply providing an alert, he was conveying a particular message regarding what lay beyond that entrance. "I'm going to trust my partner," she told Donovan, placing her hand reassuringly on Shadow's back. "If he thinks there's something important down there, we need to find out what it is." The basement door resisted initially, then yielded with a groan of protesting hinges. Stale air surged upward, carrying the distinct mineral scent of underground spaces mixed with something less identifiable, a sharp, almost metallic undertone that made Kate's nose wrinkle. Donovan observed a temperature drop as noticeably colder air surrounded them. "Feels like 15 degrees cooler down there," he remarked. A narrow, wooden staircase led down into darkness. Kate turned on her tactical flashlight, the beam illuminating a dirt floor roughly 8 feet below. Shadow remained alert, but didn't show any eagerness to descend. This was unusual for a dog typically keen to lead the way during searches. The basement proved more expansive than Kate anticipated, stretching under the complete area of the house. Stone foundation walls upheld the structure above, with hand-hewn wooden pillars offering extra support at consistent intervals. In contrast to the comparatively undisturbed upper floor, the basement displayed indications of more recent use. "Someone has been using this space," Kate noted, aiming her light beam toward a contemporary camping lantern positioned on a weathered wooden crate. Close by, a sleeping bag was carefully rolled beside a small backpack. "Search team, this is Donovan," the sheriff spoke into his radio. "We've located possible belongings of the missing hiker in an abandoned structure. Request additional units at our GPS coordinates." Only Static answered him. They systematically documented the scene, photographing the items with their phones. The backpack contained energy bars, a first aid kit, and a well-worn trail map of Blackwater Ridge with handwritten annotations. A notebook close at hand contained puzzling notes. The last one was dated the day Jason vanished. "Returning inside today, assuming the stories about this location are accurate, I should possess evidence that cannot be questioned." Shadow, who had been examining the room's boundaries while staying near Kate, abruptly tensed, his focus fixed on the distant wall. Kate instantly understood his stance, the identical alert posture he adopted when locating concealed objects during evidence searches. Shadow informed Donovan, who had been studying markings on a support pillar. The wall that had attracted Shadow's attention seemed unremarkable initially, consisting of roughly hewn stone blocks. However, as Kate drew nearer, her flashlight illuminated slight variations in the mortar arrangement approximately halfway along its length. Working together, they scrutinized the wall section meticulously, ultimately finding a skillfully hidden device, a jutting stone that, when pushed in, disengaged a latch. Accompanied by a soft scraping noise, a portion of the wall, roughly 3 feet in width, swung inward, exposing a narrow passage on the other side. This passage led to a circular room, approximately 15 feet in diameter, with a floor of fitted stone slabs. The walls displayed faded inscriptions, unknown script, and elaborate geometric designs. A stone table, appearing like an altar and bearing a dark stain, was positioned in the center. 7 candles formed a perfect circle around it, 3 of which had recently been lit, showing soft wax. The items placed on the altar were particularly unsettling: a driver's license, watch, and cell phone Kate recognized from the missing person report. These were Jason's belongings, and she documented them with photographs, careful not to move anything. The question remained, where was he? Shadow's anxiety became apparent as he moved around the room. He moved toward the altar, then retreated, conflicted by his investigative training and an intense feeling of reluctance. Kate's flashlight wavered, then noticeably weakened. Donovan's did the same. A subtle hum resonated from the walls, intensifying until Kate felt it vibrating within her. The temperature dropped sharply, their exhaled breath appearing as frosty vapor. Shadow's actions changed significantly. He settled against Kate's legs, forming a protective posture, his gaze directed at an empty corner, his fur bristling. Rather than his usual forceful barking when facing danger, he remained quietly watchful. "We must leave," Kate stated, relying on Shadow's judgment. Immediately, as they moved back, Kate's weakening light revealed one last detail. A recently inscribed name etched into the altar's edge. Beneath those others faded with time, Jason Reeves. Upon exiting the concealed room, Donovan attempted to use his radio, but it only produced the same peculiar static. Kate examined her phone. There was no signal, and the battery had dropped from 85% to 17% during their short time in the basement. A gentle thud from the level above halted them at the foot of the staircase, followed by the clear sound of footsteps on aging, creaking floorboards. "Someone's up there," Kate murmured, drawing her sidearm. The missing hiker could be this person. The main floor seemed unoccupied as they carefully exited the basement. Daylight had faded considerably. Checking her watch, she realized they had been inside for fewer than 40 minutes, but the light suggested late afternoon, not midday. Shadow suddenly became alert, his focus drawn to a small secretary desk in the corner that they hadn't previously inspected closely. The roll top of the desk had been opened, showing a stack of leather-bound journals almost neatly arranged inside. The topmost volume lay open, its pages filled with handwritten text that seemed surprisingly new compared to the old paper. Kate studied the open page, feeling a sudden chill unrelated to the basement's dampness. The writing detailed names and dates of people who've disappeared in these woods. The journal entries originated in 1893 and were written at inconsistent intervals throughout the years. Certain names were accompanied by supplemental information, including ages, occupations, and details regarding disappearances. Kate identified several entries referencing unsolved missing persons cases she had become familiar with after joining the department. Particularly unsettling was the last entry, concerning Jason Reeves, which bore yesterday's date and a specific time. 3:17 p.m. Shadow abruptly growled, turning to confront the doorway. Moments passed, then a significant crash echoed from the upper floor, indicating furniture was being knocked over or displaced. "Sheriff's Department," Donovan announced, approaching the foot of the central staircase. "Identify yourself immediately." Only silence responded, accompanied by another crash, this time directly above them. Plaster dust drifted down from the ceiling. The staircase creaked under their cautious ascent, weapons drawn. The upper hallway split into 4 rooms, the doors showing different levels of damage. Shadow guided them toward the closest entrance, his carefulness apparent in each measured step. The bedroom inside looked untouched initially, featuring a 4-poster bed with a decaying mattress, a wardrobe against one wall, and faded curtains still present at the windows. Then Kate observed the wardrobe doors gradually opening, despite the absence of any breeze or disruption that might cause the movement. Deputy Chen's voice abruptly broke through their radios, startling them both. "Sheriff, come in. We've been trying to reach you for over an hour." Donovan pressed his transmit button. "Chun, we're inside a structure approximately 2 miles northwest of the backpack location. Possible evidence of the missing hiker found. Sir, we can barely read you. Signals breaking up. Do you need assistance?" "Affirmative. Track our GPS coordinates. Approach with caution." Kate went to the window, hoping to spot the approaching search team from afar. However, she stopped, stunned by the scene before her. The area around the house appeared altered. The forest seemed nearer, thicker, the trees leaning inward, as if the woods had somehow moved closer while they were inside. A floorboard groaned behind them, though neither had shifted. Shadow turned toward the noise, positioning himself between Kate and the vacant corner of the room. The temperature plummeted rapidly, their breath visible in the suddenly frigid air. As if to emphasize her statement, a door slammed somewhere down the hallway. Then another. The sound of footsteps, numbering more than one person could manage, reverberated from several directions at once. We retreated the way we had come, Donovan decided, moving toward the bedroom door, only to discover it was closed, despite neither of them having touched it. Kate grasped the doorknob, finding it intensely cold. The door rotated without obstruction, yet remained unyielding, as if a significant force held it back from the hallway. Donovan proposed examining the window, and immediately moved towards it. The old frame initially resisted his attempt to lift the sash, but then yielded with a scattering of paint chips and debris. A blast of cold rain rushed in, bringing with it the fragrance of damp soil and pine. Shadow's growl intensified, his attention still directed towards the apparently vacant corner of the room. Kate had grown accustomed to relying on her partner's instincts, especially when they sensed threats she couldn't identify. Whatever was in that corner registered as dangerous to the Malinois. Kate secured her sidearm and proceeded cautiously as a forceful impact rattled the bedroom door. The old wood fractured but remained intact. A second impact splintered the frame along one side. The fall to the ground outside was roughly 12 feet, negotiable but potentially hazardous. Kate descended from the sill, using her hands to lower herself and minimize the drop to the muddy earth below. She landed unevenly but sustained no injuries, quickly arranging herself to be in shadow. Donovan raised the Malinois, who appeared remarkably compliant with the handling, reinforcing Kate's sense that the dog detected significant danger within. Shadow permitted himself to be passed through the window, his 65 pounds of muscle momentarily suspended before Donovan released him to Kate below. Another crash originated from inside the bedroom, followed by Donovan's startled shout. Kate looked up to observe the sheriff struggling with the window sash, which had unexpectedly slammed down, nearly trapping his hands. "Something's got it," he called, straining against the seemingly immovable window. Shadow barked sharply, not an alert for danger, but his specific call for Kate's attention. The Malinois was focused on a point at the corner of the house, where weathered clapboards met in a seam that appeared to be separating unnaturally, revealing darkness beyond. "Sheriff, another exit," Kate called up to Donovan. "Meet me at the front of the house." Kate drew her weapon again, using her flashlight to illuminate the darkened passage beyond the open doors. Rough-hewn stone steps descended into darkness. The air rising from below held the same metallic odor they'd noticed in the basement. Shadow seemed to want her to go down, but everything she's felt in the house cautioned against returning. The dog whimpered, scratching at the initial step, his eagerness unmistakable. "Kate," Donovan's voice called from somewhere near the front of the house. "Where are you?" Before she could respond, a loud crash echoed from inside the house, the clear sound of a structural failure. Dust puffed out from an upstairs window as a portion of the roof collapsed. Shadow's fur stood on end, a soft growl vibrating in his chest, aimed not at the cellar entrance behind them, but toward the sound of Donovan's voice. A chilling sense of conviction settled in Kate's stomach. "That's not the sheriff," she whispered, completely believing Shadow's judgment. The dog maintained its position, preventing anyone or anything from approaching from around the corner. Kate retreated towards the cellar entrance, keeping her weapon aimed at the side of the building. Shadow followed her, continuing his protective posture. The constricted tunnel stretched roughly 20 feet before leading into what seemed to be a mechanical room, containing antiquated, rusted machinery indicative of a coal furnace system from the house's initial construction. This area, in contrast to the basement they had explored previously, exhibited no indications of recent activity. A door on the distant wall likely linked to the main basement. Kate bypassed it, opting to follow Shadow toward a section of foundation wall that had partially collapsed. The Malinois readily passed through the opening, appearing outside into thick underbrush that had hidden this gap from view. "Sheriff Donovan, come in." Kate tried on her radio, but only received static. She trailed Shadow roughly 50 yards through thick foliage before daring to look back towards the house. Through openings in the trees, she observed its outline. The partially collapsed roof was now releasing smoke despite the heavy rain. Even more unsettling was the movement she noticed at several windows, with shadows moving across them, despite the fact that they had discovered no other people inside. "Kate," The authentic voice of Sheriff Donovan interrupted her focus on the house. He appeared from the trees to her right, soaked and muddied, but seemingly unharmed. "Thank God, I thought you were still inside." Shadow's reaction verified this was truly Donovan. The dog's posture softened, his tail giving a quick wag of recognition. "How did you escape?" Kate inquired, observing a bleeding cut along the sheriff's hairline. "The back staircase gave way while he was on it," he recounted, resulting in him ending up in some kind of root cellar. "He found a storm door leading out, and then—" He paused, seemingly having difficulty expressing his experience. Something was present with him inside, not a person, at least not anymore. Shadow abruptly tensed, his focus returning to the house in the distance. Kate followed his gaze, observing what seemed to be several figures exiting the front door. They were obscured by the rain and fading light, but clearly advancing purposefully toward their position. "We need to go," she stated, her strategic mind rapidly assessing their choices. The primary objective was to extract safely and redirect backup teams away from the house. After 20 minutes of consistent travel, they arrived at the ridge line, offering a view of the valley where the house was situated. From their high vantage point, they observed several flashlight beams in the distance, indicating the search teams were closing in, following their last known coordinates. "We need to stop them before they reach the house," Donovan stated, attempting his radio once more. This time, Deputy Torres responded clearly. "Sheriff, we've been trying to reach you for hours." "Listen carefully," Donovan replied. "Do not approach the structure at these coordinates. I repeat, do not approach. We are maneuvering to block your team's advance from the ridge line north of your current location." Within an hour, they had successfully met up with the search teams and created a security zone half a mile from the house. As full darkness enveloped the forest, the decision was reached to pause operations until morning. The missing hiker, Jason Reeves, was still not found. A flickering light appeared through the trees, not a consistent beam from a flashlight, but the shifting appearance of flames. The house, despite the pouring rain, was now completely consumed by fire, the glow still visible from their location. 1 month later, Kate's office wall showcased an expanding array of photographs, maps, and notes linked by red string, representing her personal inquiry. Jason Reeves remained listed as missing with no new information. The formal search continued for 2 weeks, involving numerous agencies, cadaver dogs, and ground-penetrating radar covering 10 square miles. The search yielded no results, no body was discovered, nor any further evidence besides the peculiar house that had burned completely to its foundation before firefighters arrived. Kate attached a newspaper clipping from 1922 to her board, detailing the destruction of Old Blackwater House in a fire that claimed the lives of 7 members of the Thorne family. The article mentioned local beliefs that the property had been plagued by misfortune since it was built. Her phone rang. "Morgan, this is Torres. Regarding the research you asked for? 16 disappearances have been recorded within a 5-mile radius of Blackwater Ridge, a number 3 times higher than what's typically seen in comparable wilderness areas. Any patterns?" Kate inquired. "The disappearances tend to occur in clusters of 3 or 4 individuals within a few months, followed by years of no further incidents. Has anyone ever been located?" "Only one person. A Forest Service worker was discovered wandering along Highway 16 3 months later in 1978. He had no recollection of his whereabouts and was malnourished, but sustained no other injuries." Following the phone call, Kate added the details to her board while Shadow stood beside her, his gaze fixed on the photograph of the house foundation. "What did you perceive there?" she inquired softly. Shadow immediately growled, his focus directed at the window where darkness now filled the view. Kate observed a fleeting movement in the tree line, the shadows seeming distorted. She swiftly lowered the blinds, spotting a manila envelope on the exterior windowsill, a package that couldn't be reached without a ladder from her second-floor office. A single photograph lay within, showing Jason Reeves positioned in front of the undamaged Blackwater house, his expression unreadable, bearing a timestamp 3 days following their investigation. Written on the reverse in elegant handwriting was the phrase, "The house always returns. So do we." Shadow brushed against her legs as a shiver traced its way down her spine. Outside, limbs scraped against the structure, sounding like searching fingers. For the first time in her professional life, Kate wished that certain enigmas would remain beyond resolution. Have you ever observed your pet responding to something imperceptible that prompted a feeling of unease? Animals demonstrate senses extending beyond human capabilities. They perceive frequencies beyond our hearing range, scent traces too subtle for us to notice, and possibly energies that science has yet to explain. What could your dog or cat be perceiving when they abruptly pause, focusing intensely on a vacant area of your home? Do you consider that some locations retain echoes of previous occurrences that certain perceptive animals are able to detect? Please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments section. We are eager to read your stories. If this puzzling cold case gave you chills, remember to click the subscribe button and enable notifications to stay updated with our regular uploads about remarkable dog stories. Give this video a thumbs up if you want to see more unsolved mysteries, and share it with those who value the unique capabilities of our canine friends. Be sure to view our additional unexplained canine encounters currently displaying. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, with another brand new video that explores the remarkable world of working dogs and the mysteries they help us uncover.